relax. This is TOFOP. I'm Charlie Clausen.
I'm Will Anderson. Hello, and sorry, I haven't even got through it. I haven't even got through hello and thank you for watching.
No, please,
and then,
continue.
No.
I was going to barf.
You know what I love is Charlie leaned over so dramatically too. Like for anyone watching video content of this, you've got to like this is. we as you know we're trying to do face-to-face recordings, which I love. They're great. Like and in the same room, better energy. But we did our live show yesterday. This is the first of a day of us recording. Didn't start on fire. With you halfway through my introduction leaning over to, I thought, vomit.
I had a very milky flat white before we got here, and I just got I was worried that I was going to spit like phlegm onto you, so that's what I was
I'm glad that you went to the side. You went to the side like it was a dance move, like you'd had a choreographer in. Like it was like halftime entertainment at the Super Bowl,
like one of those TikTokers who do that. Which
it was like a move. It was like you were. Are we dabbing now?
Yeah,
I
know. Amy, one of your favorite topics is how I don't understand like any youth culture, but like I still don't get what TikTok dances.
What do you mean
all about?
They dance on TikTok,
but is it a language? Like, what are they communicating with the dance?
What do you mean? They're dancing,
but is it? So when they dance,
you say there's like, is there a message to the dance?
Yes, other people watching the dance.
Yeah,
it's like sign language.
The message of the dance is, I've seen some other people do this dance. Now I'm doing the dance.
Okay, so when you see like someone,
or we've invented a dance, and we're trying to get other people to do our dance.
Yeah. Okay. So, but when you see someone,
by the way, I don't know. I'm wildly speculating.
Well, Amy, feel free to chime in at any point. But when you see someone like it's like a teenage girl,
I was going to say it would be a wild tactic to start introducing subliminal messages into the dances themselves.
Well, but like you'll see, like I've seen TikToks.
I think that's what the Chinese are doing, right? Are we right, guys? Come on.
Yeah.
Wake up, sheeple.
But when you see like it's a teenage girl and she's crying and there's captions about like, I just get so lonely, and she's like doing hot potato and all this kind of stuff.
Okay,
like, is the dance
still third? Are you thinking that's a signal?
Yeah,
I'm trapped against my will. Please help me.
Well, that's what I want. I honestly, is it interpretive dance? Is it some kind of
it's dances? Like, not all dances have to have a message. You're getting confused about the YMCA.
Yeah,
okay.
They're not all like the YMCA.
So she's just expressing her sadness or whatever through just interpret like whatever movement, but it's not. It's not coded. I'm not meant to be going, oh.
Are you not familiar with the concept of dancing?
No, I am, but like dancing.
This is what all dancing is. Well, all dancing is coordinated movement in the... Like, did you watch Lord of the Dance and go, oh, what's the message?
I just assumed, though, that like... Because they all look quite similar in what the people are doing.
Yeah,
like,
well, they're all
copying
certain
each
moves.
other.
There's certain like styles or choreography. Like when I see a lot of what I see when I see TikTok dancing, it's in the wild. Because I'm not on TikTok.
Yeah, right. So you'll see
what I learned about TikTok this week is that even if someone sends you like a link to a TikTok, if you're not on TikTok, you can't watch the TikTok, right?
We know we have a TikTok.
Oh, no, I had no idea.
I can't. It was being updated at one point. I don't know if it's been updated.
Well, I've never been on TikTok, but I've seen news reports about TikTok where they link to a TikTok, so I understand the concept of a TikTok. And when I'm in the wild, particularly walking through Sydney, through Darling Harbour, through that precinct by the ICC, where they've now put that giant mirrored wall, so they've put like a reflective wall that goes for like 500 metres. And the purpose of that is so everyone can set up their cameras and see themselves in the reflection and do their
TikToks, right?
So there are crews, like I'm talking probably most nights, there are hundreds of teenagers all in their own individual crews. Okay. Like, side by side.
Doing choreo.
Yeah, but doing their own. So they all work it out together.
Yeah.
And then they do their little choreo. And then, but other people are doing a different choreo.
I was having a conversation with a friend last night at dinner. That classic sort of like Gen X boomer conversation about, kids these days have got no resilience, and kids these days, they just can't take criticism, all this kind of stuff. And I was defending the kids, saying, because I don't understand, but I imagine the pressure that we sort of dealt with as teenagers, or the things that we were worried about, and the things that that we felt were real hardships, have changed. Of
course,
we look at, because I was saying to him, well, what about things like cyberbullying and things like that, which we never had to deal with? It's like, isn't that the hardship and the stuff that they're dealing with? Maybe that's far more traumatic than the kind of bullying that we dealt with. Like maybe. Do you know what I mean?
I remember when the internet first came along, the first time that someone wrote something mean about you, like had to stay in bed for a week. You know what I mean? Like, and I was an adult when that happened. A resilience? Yeah. What was my resilience like when somebody on some blog spot wrote a mean comment about my
Jill
show?
Anderson.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's one of the most
Like they've been
vanilla
raised
insult.
with this brainwashing machine that constantly is feeding them negative information about themselves, about their body image, about the world, about the future, and run by enormous brainwashing corporations and their kids. Resilience. I think these kids are absolutely resilient, particularly in a world where, again, we're of the generation that luckily enough have been able to afford still to maybe purchase a house or whatever. We're still of a generation where, yes, it's been a struggle for our generation, but it was still something that most people of our age have reasonably expected at some stage in their life. They're like, I could probably still buy a house. Whatever I do. I tell dick jokes for a living and you pretend to be other people. And we've both, at some stage in our house, bought a house. You know what I mean? Like it was a reasonable expectation.
Yeah.
Whereas, I don't think for today's generation, even if you're going to be super successful, the idea that you could say buy a house or do any of these things that we took for granted, resilience? I think the kids are resilient.
I was thinking about that house ownership thing the other day because I was talking to my friend who he's got two daughters who are leaving high school now. And so he's got his house and then they bought an investment property 20 years ago. And I was saying, are you ever going to sell that? And he's like, no, I need to hang on to that for my girls because they're never going to be able to afford a house. And so
because of people like me holding on to these for my girls.
exactly. But that's what I was thinking. It's this is what's happened is now boomers and Gen X or people property owners who have investment properties, they're all like, oh, well, if I have kids, I need to hang on. I can't sell these.
Of course.
I'm not going to release in this market to ease the housing crisis because who's going to look after my kids? And it's just made us all very insular. And it's like, we just protect our own. We protect our own.
Well, this is the problem, though. Once you get involved and you have some stakes in the game, it's a lot harder to, willingly sacrifice those stakes in the game.
Because it directly affects your family.
Yeah.
Your
I mean,
kids.
it's like private school, right? It's one of those things where if you want to send your kids to private school and you can afford to do that, sure, that's fine. Okay, understand that. But then, of course, there becomes this lobbying I pay my taxes. We should get the same fees to our private schools as they get to the public schools as well. And so then suddenly the private schools are so far ahead of everywhere else. You've run down the public schools so much that no one who's got their kids at a private school is going, no, I should send my kids to public school anymore, right? Because you've ruined the whole system. The system's fucked now.
Yeah, it's... Oh, man.
This is not really what we
comedy.
were.
Let's talk about jokes. Let's talk about good things. We're recording this the day after our second live show in Melbourne, and it went really well. It was so much fun, sold out, which was a nice feeling, well in advance. And we had Bron Lewis and Sam Peterson,
who were both fantastic.
Your two drunk aunties.
Yes.
And
great podcast too, by the way. And there was even
their audience,
a few of their audience.
I think that's
came
the
along
key,
to
right?
The show, right?
That's the sellout. But we didn't really announce that.
No, right
So
until
they must have got in the very last minute.
very last minute. But
Yeah.
I think I said to Sam when we had about 10 tickets left, and then maybe we had a couple up our sleeve of comps and whatever, that if you want to let your pals know, and they came out. Good on them. So a big salute to their audience as well.
There's a great vibe in the room, though. I mean, it was probably only 10, 15 more people than the last show, but the energy was really different. It just felt like a real fun, kind of boisterous show.
Well, the weird thing to me, and in a good way, was we've talked somewhat about this on the, classic TOFOP, have all our
Strap
meetings
yourselves
on air.
in. We're about to analyse what is TOFOP.
I mean, Charlie and I had an actual proper business meeting with Amy and some of the people here at Listener scheduled last week, and then anyway it all
We missed it.
we missed it, and so now we're having our meeting on air. Okay. This is typical TOFOP style. We missed the official
both
meeting
got
where we
the
could talk.
time wrong.
Yeah,
Which is crazy.
I was only half an hour out. I think.
I was a day. It's not my fault though. It's my computer's fault. I rely on getting my reminder notifications, but for whatever, I've just had my computer and my phone serviced at the same time, and I think it's just completely fucked. Whatever settings I have.
My schedule is just so chockers that
I mean, you barely had.
No,
that was the one window, and we missed it.
Well,
it's like Halley's Comet.
The truth is, I don't think I had a window for the time the meeting actually was on. I only had a window for the meeting time I thought the meeting was on in my head. But, so we've talked a little bit about this on the show, but one of the things that you and I talked about when we started out doing this version of like doing some live shows was, can we do something that is more like the podcast, that instead of doing a big live show that is different to the thing that people listen to most weeks, can we actually replicate something that is much more like this? But because this is a free-form conversation where we never plan anything and we come into it, that is quite a terrifying thing to take to a room or take to an audience and say,
Come
okay?
listen to a conversation. Yeah.
And we're going to just pull a thread and see what unravels and hopefully trust us that it will go to somewhere interesting. Or it might go to a bunch of different places, or it might not have any consistent theme throughout it. And so there's always we always felt like we had to add bells and whistles in case us just having a chat with each other wasn't enough.
When you're asking people to pay money to leave their homes to come see a show, you feel an obligation to deliver them something that justifies, that expense and their time. But I think where we're sort of getting closer to is, I know this is what people are paying to see. And the feedback we're getting from you guys tends to be, this is what we want. Like, we like listening to the show and we want a version of that live on stage. Obviously, it's not going to be exactly the same.
I mean, there still is. But what I loved about yesterday was that it really felt like, and for people who obviously haven't heard the episode yet, but Charlie discovers some, when Facebook, you first joined Facebook in 2008, your status updates from the time, and you decide to read some of them out.
Yeah.
And it's just
like my journal. It was like my journal from 2008.
And it's what we just would do on an average episode of this. But it just felt like then we just had two guests who joined in on that.
Yeah.
And I thought that one of all the ones that we've done, like, was the closest so far to us just going, yes, this is like an episode of TOFOP live on stage. So I really enjoyed it.
A lot of people came up, a lot of audience members were like, you're so brave, you're so brave. But it was funny, like, because the idea came to me when I was I had a different plan for what I wanted to do at the live show. And then I got fed one of those old status updates by Facebook, which was only from like 2012 or 2013. And it was so cringe that I was like, oh God, like, who was that person? And then I was like, I'm just going to go back and see who that person was when Facebook first started. And the visceral reaction I got to reading those posts immediately me go, oh, that's something that people will want to listen to.
Yes.
Like, I think it's something that people want to hear because it is so bad. And it's,
I mean, there were times where literally, and I mean, there were moments in the room where like, oh, did we just lose them? And they were like, oh, no, they are just kind of stunned and horrified.
Because it did make me think, we talked last time or a few weeks ago about that episode of Smodcast Emo Kev and how I just love that. And it's where Kevin Smith and Scott Mosier listened to old cassette tapes of, 19-year-old. And I just love the idea of revisiting that person you were and just being like, who was that? This idea of, you think that when you think of your life, that it's been a through line, but you could also be viewing it in stages or like constant reinventions, like that you were this person with these views at one point in your life. And it doesn't even have to be like, 14 years ago. It can be like 5 years ago. You look back and go, who was that? Why did I have those firmly held beliefs? Sometimes, like, I stopped listening to the show years ago. And I think a lot of it was because in the space of 6 months, I'd listen to something I said and be like, I don't think that anymore. That was a weird thing for me to say. I don't know why I said that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those undervalued ideas of going, look how far we've come.
Yeah.
It's good.
I mean, I guess
like, it's good to go, look how far we come.
You would have that, or any comedian would probably have that in terms of like your shows, right? Like, if you went back through the history of all your shows, there's probably stuff that, you built your ideas or topics you built your show around that maybe you've completely changed on, or...
Oh, yeah. I mean, there are iconic positions that you thought you, like, absolutely 100% agreed with. Like, you're just like...
Free Kony.
I am in. I don't think they ever caught him, did they? To actually free him.
So was it? What was it? Kony? What was? I can't even
It
remember.
was
Kony.
like, wasn't it Get Kony?
Oh, Get
Stop
Kony.
Kony.
Stop Kony.
Catch
Free-
Kony.
No, see, that's the difference between you
Yeah.
and I. Will. I was.
2012.
Kony
Yeah.
2012.
Can someone remind?
That sounds like Kony was running for president. Kony 2012.
What was
Well,
Kony
it
again?
also had the big campaign posters.
Yeah.
He was like a war criminal, and there
Warlord.
was this whole
Yeah.
Yeah, so
viral
that's where-
campaign to
Yeah.
try and catch him.
Catch him.
Yeah.
But they didn't catch him, did they? I don't think Kony got caught by the
Let me
Kony
have a
2012.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
the guy who started the campaign was caught masturbating in public.
yeah,
like
ran
2
down the
weeks.
street. Yeah, running down the street, masturbating in public or something.
I mean, what?
Kony was the name of his penis, and he freed him on the streets of San Francisco.
I mean, that's like the milkshake duck of 2012, right? The Kony. That everyone, it was this thing that everyone just caught fire.
Well, I think
We all
Kony
jumped on
is like,
board.
yeah, everyone was like, we should stop Kony. Kony is, there was, at the time, because I remember us talking about this on Gruen, and there was, I think, yeah, there's heaps of these warlords in the area. So they kind of just picked like a warlord and kind of then made them at Kony to be out of like, to be like the worst of the worst, you know? Whereas Kony was like, yeah, I think that day Kony was being like, whoa, I didn't realize I was like,
I'm trending.
yeah, I'm the King Ralph of like
Just a
evil
little
dictators.
update for Kony 2024.
Oh, yeah.
He is apparently still at large,
Yeah,
Ah,
see?
but no longer considered a significant security risk to Uganda.
Oh, well, that's
Yeah,
okay. Then
great.
that's good. That's
this is
perfect TOFOP territory.
Everyone relax, comes for Kony.
Yeah, imagine that.
We get Kony.
We're going to get Kony
Yeah.
personally. Just me and you.
We
fly
just,
over.
what I love is we've just had a conversation about how we just want to simplify it, keep it real, and literally our next idea is so we fly and we catch Kony.
And so, Amy, was there a because I seem to remember there was some kind of ulterior motive by the Kony guy. The guy, so he was like a fundamentalist Christian.
They were religious in some way.
right, yeah,
Yeah.
And but was it?
Yeah, I'll look
Yeah.
into it. There was definitely.
Yeah, look
I
into
mean,
it.
You know, the Wikipedia we've got the headings reception positive, negative.
Mm.
So it's, you know, I think it's just one of those. It was very viral thing, but I don't know what it actually did. And
No.
was very
And
but there-
criticized
but
for,
there
like,
was definitely
the
what-
slacktivism, like share the video, and then it's like, well, what's
Yeah.
that actually doing?
Well, that's
Yeah.
exactly what it was. It was the first slacktivism. It was the first, like, everybody got mad about it and then really didn't. They was just like, yeah, because it
I'm
was
doing
like,
something.
because it was basically just, yeah, post Kony 2012 or whatever, right? Like,
Yeah.
which I guess does
I'm-
nothing.
And I am so susceptible to those like
Yeah.
slacktivism things. I remember when Game Changers came out, that vegan documentary. And
Oh,
it was
yeah.
like, veganism is the greatest. And I was like, it is the
Yeah.
greatest thing ever.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And then that turned out to be bullshit
Yeah.
as well. It's like, oh man,
Most
I'm
things,
such a rube.
Most things that seem too good to believe are too good to believe.
Yeah. Yeah, I know, but I want to believe it.
I know. Well, that's
'Cause
okay.
It's so easy.
I like that. I like that you want to believe in, you know,
Yeah.
it's good.
Well, I guess maybe it's because of the Catholic upbringing or something like that. Someone offers you easy,
Then that's not good.
easy solutions.
That's bad, actually. It turns out that need has been created by something horrible.
Well, I think it's more just that you
Yeah.
get primed to accept bullshit from a very young age. Like I was talking to a friend about it last night about my mother, and I was like, it's kind of weird because her personality and the things that she valued and believed in, a lot of it was very contrary to the Christian faith or, you know, Catholicism. But I think for her, Catholicism wasn't so much about like the religious dogma or even the institution. It was about community, you know, like in terms of she would go to church on a Sunday, her friends would be there, then they could go and, you know, have coffee afterwards, or it was just more about that. But then I remember after she passed away and with my brothers and sisters planning her funeral, and none of us are practicing Catholics, like, you know, 8 kids and none of us, you know, didn't catch on with any of us. That there was this sort of discussions around, well, obviously we're going to give her a Catholic funeral and stuff, but there was all this kind of like really old school heavy God jargon talk and, you know, the priest. And I remember sort of sitting there going, do we want to do this? Like, I mean, I understand that Mum, you know, was a Catholic and she went to church, but like I wanted to err more on the family saying things and being more of an honouring her through our point of view as opposed to reading passages from the Bible. But my family seemed to kind of just, I think it was, because they wanted to honor what mum's wishes would have been. But it was almost like this kind of Pavlovian response. Like from a young age, you were taught these rituals and these ways of thinking that, a priest comes in, I didn't even know, but he starts talking about, well, this is the way you structure a funeral service and we'll do a reading from this book and blah, 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 blah. And everyone's like sitting there. And I was like, do we have to do this though? Like, we're grown-ups now. We don't have to be told how to do this. And, in the end, we sort of reached a sort of compromise where I sort of insisted that I want to get up and say something. I don't want it to all be like just reading from an ancient book. But I do think that there is that, I don't want to say it's insidious because that's not I think that's too harsh a word, but there is this programming that happens with this stuff where I do think it does make you more susceptible to compliance or authoritarianism. It's like, well, where's the authority figure? What are the rules? And we'll follow along with that.
Well, yes, but that's every version of everything. Like, basically, it's the moment where, like, parents decide that their kids won't just do what they say.
Yeah.
And then they need to make up something, like a person in the sky or a Santa Claus or an Easter Bunny or whatever it might be to get them to do whatever it is that they need them to do, right?
Yeah.
That's just been happening forever?
I guess so. Like, but if you look at every major religion, they are all sort of built around the same basic kind of belief system, which is all quite honourable, which is like just be nice to each other and don't.
Yeah, but a lot of it's also don't masturbate. Like that's got to come out of like teenage boys who are like.
But that's not the religion. That's normally the institution. It's the text, that's associated with the institution, which has been written by some fucking weirdo.
Where it says don't plant a seed, that says don't touch yourself.
Yeah.
I've interpreted that as don't touch your dick.
Yeah, so I think it does get corrupted, but it is. I always like watch those documentaries on cults or whatever, and I'm like, how do people fall into line with these? Some cult leaders aren't even that like charismatic. They are weird more than anything.
I think that because you look at somebody like a Russell Brand who clearly wants to be a cult leader and in a way kind of has become a cult leader. And he looks like a cult leader out of central casting of what you would cast your cult leader to look like and act like.
Robes.
But
beard.
then, yes, when you see like a Nexium documentary or whatever it might be, you're like, this is like, I don't know if I'd talk to that guy if he was at a party I was at.
Years ago, like when I was just out of uni, I was working for this multimedia company and they...
Pyramid scheme?
Well, there was this, I don't know, they're like an investment company or whatever. They wanted us to make some marketing materials for them. And so we went and had this meeting. This guy's name was Henry Kay, who I think has gone on to be jailed for misuse of funds and, unsecured loans and all this kind of stuff. But he was this property investor, get rich quick, who'd do 3-day seminars where you'd come in and he'd tell you how to invest in property and blah, blah, blah. And so I remember me and my friend whose company it was, the multimedia company, we went along and we sort of sat through the seminars. And the whole time I'm like, this seems like utter bullshit. Like it's a get rich quick scheme. And everyone who worked at this company, like I remember because we sat down and when we discussed, okay, so you want us to produce, these DVDs and this material for you. Well, this is the rates, this is our fees. And they were like, okay, yeah, we could pay you that. Or we could give you equity in the company. We could give you these shares. Yeah. And I remember we were sort of sitting there going, no, we want to get paid.
Yeah.
but
we could give you money, but we've got something even better. These rocks that we've painted smiley faces on.
But that's what it was like. But the thing that really struck me was that like his second in command, who was the one who was sort of negotiating the deal, he was like, I've got like shares and he was really like upselling us on it. And this was before we'd even met like Henry Kay, and I was like, oh, well, he must be like so charismatic. And then he came in and he was this weird little dude who had like a lazy eye and like it was quite disconcerting talking to him because you're like, which eye am I looking at? And I was like, but how has this dude commanded all this? Like people were paying thousands of dollars to go to these seminars and it was not like he was particularly charismatic or interesting, or even the stuff he was saying. And I don't know anything about
I
property
think that
investment.
if he would like, be too slick in that circumstance, though, I think that would be almost,
A red flag.
yeah. Like you get some slick guy in suddenly pitching you on like, some sort of, you're like, oh, this is a pyramid scheme. Whereas if you get some guy who's like, maybe looks a little more down to earth, like he's actually just like, oh, no, this is like a nerdy guy who's like, come up with this thing and he's trying to get other people involved. He looks a little bit more like me, right?
Yeah. But I guess, this would have been in pre-social media era, so it was maybe less easy to verify what he's talking about, or you can't do like a Google search, but Google search now is fucked anyway.
No.
Right? Like,
And now we're back to when you can't do a
Yeah.
Google search. Remember that like sweet 15 years where you could do a Google search?
And it's strange though, right? Like what it made me realize though is people want a messiah. They want someone to be offering them the solution. Is this the
And
way?
so we're saying it's Kony, right?
Well, I
we're
think
saying
so. We free Kony.
We free Kony.
We free Kony so he can re-offend, so then we can stop Kony.
By the way, as we found out, Kony is still at large, so he has not been caught. So, but if we start a campaign to free Kony, I think that'll really confuse the shit out of people. In fact, it might confuse Kony so much that he hands himself in to go like, I'm here, like I'm not.
I
I'm
am
not.
free.
And then we're like, gotcha, got him. We got Kony.
Was there any? Did any media organization actually ever contact Kony or interview Kony, or were there any statements from Kony himself?
Genuine wrote that song, Kony, about.
My
Kony.
Kony, climb on it.
Not
Bom,
that
bom,
I
bom,
can
bom.
see. It's possible, but it seems like he's just had been on the run because part of the controversy was that by the time the
Kony on the run.
by the time that video came out, he actually wasn't even in Uganda anymore. Like he'd already fled the country. So it was kind of misleading, the video.
Okay, so they were saying
produced video about a complicated
about Uganda,
a complicated conflict in Uganda.
Yeah.
It's really
Was a little
oversimplifying everything.
No.
Right.
Interesting. Well, we could do that. We could absolutely oversimplify something.
Well, that's all we can do.
Yeah. This
We're
is
not getting into the complex.
No. And
So-
now we don't have to go to Uganda.
Are
Where do
you
we
guys
reckon Kony
suggesting
is?
that
Is
we
there any
get- we get
suspicions?
the scoop, and I maybe just send out an email and just say, "I want to sit down for an hour chat, Riverside."
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes.
Kony.
Yeah, you were asking the
Yeah.
other day, who do I want for TOFOP with friends?
Kony. Why don't you do a dictator series? See if you can get
Yeah.
warlords, like a range of warlords.
I mean-
Finally, a chat with Kony. Kony reflects on the whole Kony 2012 controversy.
Kony
I'd be,
spills
like, it'd
all.
be great. I'd just love
Kony breaks his silence.
Yeah, I just love to see like when we release the video clips online to promote the episode, and he's sitting there in his living room. He doesn't have his camera pointed up right. He's got his headphones on.
No, he wouldn't
it
have
turns out
headphones
he.
on.
Oh yeah, that's right. It'll just be room echo.
No, I reckon he'd be better. He'd be the opposite. Kony's like full decked out.
He's got his own podcasting studio.
He's got the Tesla.
Like and subscribe.
What's his name? Elon Musk space internet.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he's like, I reckon he's like Twitch.
He's a Twitch
live.
streamer. Yeah. After this, you watch me play some video
Yeah.
games. Going to play Red Dead
Yeah,
Redemption.
it's just got Zelda, so anyway.
I mean, we say that as if I have any idea what Twitch is.
Oh no, these are just words. I'm just throwing out words.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
words that we hear. I mean, I remember Osher said to me a few years ago, he's like, you know what you and Will should do is you should just like start a Twitch.
Yeah.
Because you guys could do the show and then people could just like, live comment and send you money and all that kind of stuff. Because that's how like a feature of Twitch. Like, so people subscribe to your Twitch and then as you're broadcasting, if you say something that they like, they can tip you. So you get like, $5 gets chucked into your Twitch. Well, you don't think that sounds appealing?
No.
Why not?
Because then it like suddenly you're at the beck and call of an audience like immediately to like, if you say, you know what, I reckon Kony had some great ideas, and suddenly $15 comes in.
Oh, shit.
You're suddenly like, you've been bought off quite cheaply.
By a warlord.
And then you're like,
It's his $15.
so then you're like, well, maybe I should say some more nice things about Kony.
Well, I don't know. I mean, Amy, do you Twitch or do you follow any Twitch streamers?
Not live. I never really watch live Twitch streams, but I sort of
No,
follow a
me
few
either.
people and watch their clips, like Tom Walker or Limmy. I
Yes.
Yeah.
know of them. And
There's
watch
one.
them.
There's an Hassan Piker. I watch his. He uploads Twitch streams to YouTube. He's he's more of like a lefty sort of political commentator. But from what I understand, and I think he's one of the biggest ones, especially sort of on the left. But watching him do his streams, like he talks nonstop. It's like a real skill to sort of like, just talk on his own. But then he's also interacting with these comments that are sort of flying in the chat. Like he's responding to people, but like in an instant. And it seems exhausting. Like I can barely read an email. Like when it gets sent in, the fact that, you can be talking and then glance down and see someone's like commented on something you've just said, and then you respond to that and then get back at that seems a lot of work.
I think there is a part of my brain, and I've been reading Danny Wallace's latest book, which is called Somebody Told Me, I think, and it's about
You
conspiracy.
had a boyfriend?
It's about conspiracy theories, rabbit holes, and those sort of things, and it's great. It's really good. But one of the things he talks about is Alex Jones, and the what do you call them? What are the crisis actors, and all that sort of the Sandy Hook stuff and everything that happened. But he's just talking about what that Alex Jones model is, which is a bit like that. It was him kind of like then reading comments or like whatever, and then just like teeing off and going on these rants and editorials. And there was part of me in my head, I was like, I think there's probably a part of my skill set or brain that I've developed doing other things, my improvised shows, like doing my media work, whatever, that if I wanted to do something like that, I think that I could. Because sometimes I'm like
Make a fist of it.
Yeah, sometimes when I listen to footy commentary, like I've got friends who are footy commentators, I go, could I be a footy commentator? And I don't think I could. I'm not good at remembering numbers, players, like being able to call something in that moment. That's not a skill that I think, even if I sat down and decided I wanted to do that, I think, but whereas if I decided I wanted to be like,
Just rant.
yeah, to like have a Twitch stream where people, and I just like rant on and like bounce off the comments, I think that I probably could do that. I'm not saying I want to do that.
Have you ever heard?
But I think I could
listen
do
to
that.
Bill Burr's podcast.
I have, yeah.
And so,
Which is a bit like that.
yeah, so
Yeah.
he doesn't really rant. I mean, I find that really like an interesting podcast to listen to. The pace is a lot different, but he obviously gets these thoughts of these things he wants to talk about, whether it's a show he's just seen or whatever, and then you hear him kind of work his way through that. But then that is different to the high energy, there's conspiracy, buy my supplements kind of approach.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I have that energy level.
No. I could reckon you could probably do a solo. Actually, I shouldn't talk myself out of a job. Here,
Solo podcast.
I think what's holding you back, Will, is that you have a co-host.
No, you do the majority of the work. So, like, if I was left to have to do it myself, it wouldn't happen.
Yeah, that's right. I don't think I could. I remember when I was at Triple J and I was just doing little guesties on people's shows and occasionally working the reception desk. I did a couple of, what are they called, air checks, where you practice being on air. And I can't remember who was the person who was helping me do it, but they were like, so the best thing to do is when you get in there is you're not talking to an audience, you're talking to someone else. Like put someone in the studio with you. And I found it I remember just turning the mic on and I have nothing to say to this invisible person who's sitting across from me. I couldn't get my head around who am I talking to? I couldn't complete the thought. I didn't know how to end this kind of conversation where I didn't have someone to bounce off. I don't think I would be any good at that.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever done. Because again, you think about these radio people who, your talkback radio hosts or whatever, who are just literally in the chair every day, going through the paper, having a producer, having something in their ear, like something comes up on the screen, they take a call. There is an element of that I think, I think, what I think it is, honestly, because I have thought about it a bit over the years, which is, I think I'd probably be quite good at that. The thing that that has always stopped me from pursuing it is, I think that's not a very good thing for you. I think it's very hard not to be, become like bananas from doing that, I think.
In what way?
To be constantly only hearing, your own voice or everything being through your prism. Like, particularly to be at the heart of one of those shows, your editorial voice. You can't be as curious, right? You have to have some sort of position to get through things.
That's
Whereas, like,
right, yeah. And I think that's my problem is that I don't trust my own opinion on anything.
yeah, I think as I've got older, I trust my own less and less.
Right.
You know, I really do feel like I'd rather ask, like, you know.
It is interesting, too. In that same conversation I was having with my friend who was like, kids aren't resilient. I was thinking back, like, to, you know, your 20s and this idea that you sort of are so passionate about things, you know, like the bands you love
Yes.
and the movies you love.
The
and
friends you have.
The friends you have. And everything is so like, oh,
Yes.
God, like it's, you know. And then
This is the best.
And then the older you get, the sort of, you ease up on that. But I think you're right. It's more, I just have more doubts about
Uncertainties.
uncertainties.
Yeah.
Because, you know, it's also because I think you go through that period of the dreams and hopes and aspirations you have maybe don't pan out the way you want. Not necessarily in a negative sense. It's just that, you know, you thought life was going to be a certain way and then it goes in a certain direction. So how can you be certain of anything anymore? You know what I mean? Like,
Well,
if
it's
you're
the
someone
thing-
whose life in your 20s like worked out exactly what you dreamed, like you're at high school and you wanted to be a professional athlete or whatever it is, and then you're doing that, does that then kind of ruin you for the next stage of your life when that particular chapter of your career or you know, your journey ends and you have to take up something else that doesn't go the way you thought? Like I've always said about, you know, child actors, I don't think I would never actively push Iona into being an actor or a performer or anything like that, because I think that being on set naturally inverts the way society is structured, the hierarchy of, you know, you listen to grown-ups and all this kind of stuff. Because all of a sudden, you know, there's a 15-year-old and they've got a PA who's bringing them a bottle of water and holding an umbrella over their head and driving them places and stuff. And I think that could be very confusing for a kid. It's like, oh, well, I'm very important and this is the way the world is. And then they leave that environment and then it's like, no, that's not the way the world is. You are not more
I think
important
when
than
you're
other
a kid,
people.
you think you're more important than other people. Anyway, that's part of just being young.
Really?
Like, well, I mean, just to kind of, as in, you probably only consider your own needs.
You're more
first and-
self-centered.
Yes, yeah, first and foremost.
But to get
right?
that validated by adults who...
Well, that's what I mean. There's that classic cliche of, you know, I wish I was a teenager again when I knew everything, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, because you do. You suddenly have your own ideas and you, like, in your brain, they're all so certain and, like, you know, you believe things very strongly and things are black and white. But also, you haven't... somebody was saying to me the other day, they say, my favorite biscuit is a chocolate Tim Tam. And I'm just like, you're just a person who doesn't eat a lot of biscuits. Because if you eat a lot of biscuits, after a while you realize that, yeah, so chocolate Tim Tam is fine if you've never tried any other biscuits. But there are better biscuits than a chocolate Tim Tam, right?
I don't know that there are.
Well, so you don't eat a lot of biscuits either.
I ate a lot of biscuits.
No, you eat like some fucking muck that you
I know, I
shape into
do,
a
yeah.
biscuit shape.
Can I tell you my latest one? My latest one that's been rejected by Iona in my endless pursuit to create healthy treats. So I found this. All right. So I was like, I can't make her the traditional Anzac. Too much butter, too much sugar.
Yeah.
I tried to make her a less Anzac-y one. She rejected that. And then I came across this recipe that was like, basically you swap out the butter for coconut oil.
Yep.
And you swap out the sugar for maple syrup.
And you swap out the oats for
No,
dirt,
everything else
and
pretty
you swap.
everything else pretty much stays the same.
So hang
And-
on, yes. So what do we got? We got coconut,
So coconut instead of butter, maple syrup instead of sugar.
maple syrup instead
and
of sugar. Okay,
admittedly,
that's right.
these things are not like, it's not like gigantic.
Don't know if we should have got
health
the
benefits.
Canadians and the Hawaiians involved with the Anzacs, but sure, all right, whatever.
But like, even in terms of health benefits,
Yeah.
it's not like a huge difference, but it's just a slightly
just
bit
enough
better.
to make it not taste as good.
But the secret ingredient is
Mm.
tahini. So you put in like a third of a cup of tahini to mix with the
Mm-hmm.
oats. And I was like, oh, it's delicious and it's
Yeah.
crispy and it tastes like a cookie. And to
That's a United Nations cookie.
To
though.
even-
That's not like an Anzac. That's
yeah,
like
yeah, it is. It's the UN.
It's,
It's,
an
the Benetton.
Yeah,
United
exactly.
Flavors of
Yeah,
Benetton.
Exactly.
But to even like sweeten the deal, I said I'll chuck in some choc chips, like some dark chocolate
Okay.
chips as well.
Mm-hmm.
And Iona, like, I served it up to her, and her response is, needs sugar,
Yeah.
not sweet enough. And I was like, oh, but I really enjoyed it. I thought it was like I really like the sort of sesame flavor of the tahini, and I thought there was enough sweetness in the maple syrup.
Yep,
And
it's what kids traditionally love, the sesame taste of tahini.
tahini is a good like ingredient.
Yes, adult, you're
So-
right.
My nose started leaking, and I realized we don't have any tissues in here.
No, we don't have any tissues in here.
I'm just not used to the cold in Melbourne. But I love a biscuit. I love a cookie, and I'm telling you right now that Tim Tams are definitely like in my top 3. Just a traditional one. Like I know we've had the Jats.
But this is what I mean. Like they're fine. But if you're eating a lot of biscuits, you're going to get sick of a Tim Tam pretty quick. Like a Tim Tam is a good
that
biscuit
true?
for people who have like
So what's
one or two
your-
biscuits a week. But
do you have a top 5?
I mean, the Tim Tam wouldn't get in the fucking conversation.
No fucking way. Really?
Yeah, Tim Tam
It's
is
an
like
Australian institution.
yeah, it's a great biscuit for people that don't have a passion for biscuits.
So are you saying it's
in
like,
the same
are
way
you-
as someone says, "I like music, I like Taylor Swift." Yeah,
Yeah.
great, good on you.
So you're saying it's
like,
the Toyota Corolla?
I'm not saying Taylor Swift's not a great artist. I'm just saying it's not a particularly like.
Well, no. So what you're being is like it's too mainstream. Like you like underground biscuits.
That is true. I do
You
like.
like going to some niche bakery
it
where
is
it's
true.
like
Yes.
it's a red velvet and cranberry cookie.
You're
or
right.
something
I don't
that.
like this cookie cutter approach to cookies. It's true.
Do
you
you-
know what? That is actually you've identified.
You like bespoke biscuits.
I like a bespoke biscuit.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
But then, so is there a...
I would like in order, home cooked, 100%
Okay.
my top biscuit.
But like what?
Any
Are we-
type of home cooked biscuit
Okay.
is ahead of pretty much any other biscuit, as far as I'm concerned. Like a home baked biscuit, just there's something about like
Yeah.
and I'm not even like so. Then second, misshapen,
Yeah, I
the
agree.
right amount of. So there is a lovely person at our work who every week for our meetings brings in a home cooked so it'll just be like it's lemon slice this week, or it's like it's a white chocolate brownie, or it's a raspberry coconut slice, or it's like whatever, just like a selection of little slices every week, right? And the other day it was like a passion fruit lemon curd thing, but every week just a home cooked thing, right size, like a little square, like a little square size, like a more not your sort of like, because this is the problem with your artisanal cookie, your specialist cookie. So once you then suddenly it's like a meal. Like, you're buying like a pizza size cookie, right? They're delicious, but that's like, I like a little sort of like more bite size, like smaller serving size when it comes to so that I can have more, I think.
Right. So do you like those little, the bar and bake cookies where they come in the small bag?
Yeah. I mean, if I was going to go a bar and bake cookie, which fits somewhere between the artisanal and mass produced, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like
It's a mass-produced artisanal cookie.
Yeah. So your bar and bay cookie company cookie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have the small ones over the bigger one. Yeah. If that's like a
See,
side
I'm
to
the, I
side.
think the opposite. I love going to a bakery, like an old school suburban bakery, and they do giant biscuits.
Yeah.
That makes me excited. Like if it's a giant chocolate chip or a giant Anzac or whatever. But I feel like Tim Tams to me, they still feel kind of like it's special.
Don't get me
We didn't
wrong.
get chocolate biscuits.
I
growing
love
up,
I love
so-
a Tim Tam, but I think a Tim Tam, like I'm as equally as delighted to see any chocolate biscuit as I am to see a Tim Tam.
To be honest,
You ever had a chocolate coated Scotch finger biscuit?
yeah. Oh, that's
Right?
yeah.
And that's
pretty
just
good.
immediate. That's the first one that comes to
even
mind.
a chocolate teddy bear biscuit.
Yeah, chocolate teddy bear.
TV snacks.
TV snacks.
Are
The
underrated.
entire range of TV
Yeah.
snacks are all chocolate coated biscuits, right?
They're really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. You're sort of talking about. I mean, the mint slice.
Yes.
I held above all chocolate biscuits for a while, but I don't know. Something
Can't
happened.
have too many of them though. That's the mint slices problem. You can eat like only a limited amount of
Why
mint slice.
is that?
Don't know, but it just these are my
my
these are my cookie.
my tenants.
These are my
A, B, C's
I
and
don't
E,
know,
baby.
man. It's like, I don't, there is no
Always bite cookies. A, B,
no
C.
rhyme or reason behind anything that I'm saying, but like I could talk about biscuits all day long. Like
Yeah. I mean, I must admit, like, if I want to kind of, like, I do have fantasies of clearing out the biscuit aisle of, like, a supermarket and just trying all of them. Like, if I think of all the sort of treats I like, even this is including donuts, but like biscuits is where it's at. Like I think that if I had like any limited time left, it was like my final meal. I would say, can you just go down the aisle of like a supermarket and just get me one packet of every sweet biscuit, and I'm going to just eat them as many as I can.
Do you remember back in the
Vovos,
day?
Wagon Wheels.
I don't know if they still do it,
Gaieties.
but if you would go to the big,
Like
no,
breakaways.
I'm with you, man. Like
Yeah.
I
Even I want to try the chocolate covered Oreo.
Yes.
I'm a bit scared. I love an Oreo. I mean, I know that's if Tim Tams with a Taylor Swift, then Oreos are going to be like what the like
Ed Sheeran.
But they get it the formula really right. Like this is the thing. I don't know what is about Oreos, but because Australia has their knockoff version when you get in the family assorted, which is the chocolate biscuit with the white cream. It's not as good for some reason.
It's nowhere near as good.
Why is that?
Don't know.
Sugar.
I mean, I assume so, like some sort of processing in the system. But
When I used to stay at your place in LA, you remember there was that service station
Yep.
in your street, and they would sell this little bag of mini Oreos. And that was my reward at the end of a week. If I'd done a lot of riding or whatever, if I'd worked enough, I would take myself down the street and I would buy from the service station a little pack of mini Oreos. And then I would sit on your couch and watch like a movie or something and eat those Oreos. And honestly, never been happier.
there's been two, like when we're talking mass-produced cookies at the moment, there's been two recently that have been in my roster, which is, so at work, they started in my like rider. They would just leave me like with my coffee a few like traditional Biscoff biscuits. Like so
Okay.
the original form.
Don't get the Biscoff craze. When did that become like the thing?
About
Everyone's-
2 or 3 years ago, it started
Why?
to come in. And then, well, I'm a Biscoff fan, but like I'm more your sort of like Biscoff sauce, like mashed Biscoff, like Biscoff paste. But it turns out it's all based on a biscuit, Charlie.
Yeah.
The Biscoff. It's
I
half
know.
biscuit, half coffee. Biscoff. So
Oh my God! I never realized that's it. That's
Yeah.
it. Right. Okay.
I did some research around Biscoff, but they've started leaving those. And at the start, I was a bit like, "No, this is a bit plain," but I've got into it. But then I've discovered there is a
Sorry, can we? I'm not over
Okay.
the Biscoff thing yet. Like,
No,
I
no, well,
honestly
I'm-
thought it was some Italian.
no.
Biscoff,
It's like
fancy.
it's the Netherlands or somewhere. It's
Oh,
like a
man. Because it just suddenly
it's one of the
was,
Scandinavian
it was
countries.
nowhere, and then it was everywhere.
Yeah,
and like
it's been around for 50 years.
but it's super popular.
They
now.
recently made it into like a paste, like a
Yes,
Nutella
that's
style
right.
paste.
Yeah,
and that's so it was just the biscuit, the plain old like a biscuit that you have with your coffee. But as it turns out, and then they will crush it, and now they've made it into like a
that
sweet
syrupy-
paste, and like it will be used as a sauce.
Every dessert porn I
Yeah.
get fed on Instagram, every second one is a Biscoff
Yeah.
variation. It's Biscoff Sunday, or it's a Biscoff this, or a Biscoff that. And it's like, how did they suddenly just insert themselves? They're the Kony of biscuits.
Last year at work, there was they were bringing in for a while, which they've stopped this year, which I'm disappointed about. But there was like essentially, it looked like a caramel slice, but instead of the bit in the middle that would be caramel, it was Biscoff.
Yeah.
And it was one of the tastiest things I've ever had in my entire life. In fact, I ate so many of them, that's probably the reason they don't bring them in anymore. But so now they just bring in the plain Biscoff biscuits.
Yeah.
I've got a bit of a taste for those. At my local like servo,
Yeah.
they have two. Okay, so these are the two that I've been doing recently, which is round Biscoff biscuits with the Biscoff like
Cream,
in the middle.
yeah.
Yep, beautiful, like
So-
an orange
so it's-
cream, but just all Biscoff. Biscoff on Biscoff.
Double Biscoff.
Yep,
Yeah, right.
triple Biscoff really, because you got two biscuits, a little Biscoff sandwich in
Yeah,
Biscoff.
Right.
Yeah, it's like when KFC puts out a burger, but the burger is just more chicken.
More chicken.
And then Nutella have made a biscuit. Have you seen these? So they're like a plain biscuit on the outside, but like filled with Nutella on the inside. Like a yeah, and
I've
they
seen the
are,
dips, the ones where you get the
Yeah,
little
so it's
breadsticks.
but this is like just like a traditional biscuit with the cream, like a cream filled biscuit, but instead it's just like the cookie on the outside and like Nutella on the inside.
And so when you're eating a cream biscuit,
yeah,
is your technique to
oh, yeah,
separate?
interesting. Yeah,
Separate, because what I'll do, and I'll separate. I like to
Separate.
eat. I like to taste the one side on its own, no icing,
yeah,
and then the other-
build up to the treat.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
not build up to the treat. No, I like biscuit and icing on one hand, and just plain biscuit.
oh, a
on the
little bit
other.
of both.
I never eat the icing on its own. I think that's gross.
Nah,
People who lick the
interesting.
cream out is like, ugh. I remember there was a girl at my primary school who used to get a vanilla slice, and it like scarred me. She'd get it and she'd squish it down till all the custard came out the edges, and then she would lick like all the custard off the edges, and then just eat the sugar-covered pastry. And I used to watch it with this like morbid fascination. It was like watching, you watch a National Geographic thing. It's like this snake eating a.
Look how they eat.
Yeah, it's gross. Like it's so disgusting, but I can't look away. So from then on, I'm like, you can't suck the filling out of something. It's just uncouth.
I mean, I think when I was younger, I was probably like would take the filling or the icing or whatever out. But like, I think as an adult, I've become much more. No, actually, you know what? I would say for most of my adulthood, I still ate things in pieces. Like, so if something came out, I would eat like. Whereas I think in the last 5 to 10 years only, I've become a sort of no. I'm going to try to taste this as it's meant to be
all at once.
Yes,
so
all at once.
Eat it together.
Yeah, so I'm a eat it together person now.
I think that's fair. I think if you're going through a packet of biscuits, though, you can do all of it, right?
Yeah.
So the Kama Sutra.
No one can tell you. What to do.
It's like, I'm going to do all positions. We're going to eat these biscuits in every facet. Like my biggest indulgence, if I'm really like just going to bust it out, is I don't even know what they're called, but it's the chocolate royal, but the one with the jam.
Yeah.
And so
Jammy Dodger? Is that a Jammy Dodger? No, that's the plain one with the jam.
Not Jam Fancy. What
jam. Oh, maybe they're a Jam Fancy.
No, Jam Fancy is just the jam biscuit. It's the chocolate royal, but there's under the marshmallow there's jam.
Yeah, I know the one you're talking about.
That to me is like the height of indulgence. It's kind of like a wagon wheel, but with more marshmallow.
That's a chocolate royal, isn't it? Is that what a chocolate royal is?
No, chocolate royal doesn't have marshmallow. Oh. Amy, could you just search what that is?
I'm attempting to find it.
Chocolate royal with. Thank you.
Yeah. And then could you read us all the things that we've asked you to Google? Kony, chocolate royal biscuits.
I do have a perfect. There's a
this is
I discovered with a workmate a couple of years ago that I'm so obsessed with that is a perfect intersection of everything that we've been talking about, which is old internet and biscuits.
How is that possible?
Which is this website that I discovered once called nicecupofteaandasitdown.com. And it's just this anonymous man in England who just reviews biscuits. And it's like an old HTML website.
Oh.
And like, it's just so beautiful. It's just the perfect little time capsule. And sometimes I just go on there and I just look at his reviews of different biscuits.
So there's no video. It's just
like
post.
Blog text
Amazing.
posts. Like this review of the Arnott's ginger nut starts with the paragraph: when the Voyager spacecraft flew by Saturn in the early 1980s, the space scientists gazed upon the images sent back to its icy little moons with names like Mimas, Enceladus, Tethys, Dione, and Rhea. It was the first time any of these little worlds had been anything more than tiny specks of light to human eyes. The scientists eagerly studied the cracks and fissures in the surfaces of these little frozen worlds, trying to piece together their history and composition. I get a similar buzz looking at new ginger nuts.
That
does sound.
I mean, to be honest, like we talk a lot about biscuits. I mean, this is the sort of thing we could do as a Twitch stream.
Oh, we just try biscuits.
Just try a biscuit.
Well,
I mean, we've done the Tim Tam. Well, we literally have already done this. How did the Tim Tam video go when we tried Tim Tams?
Pretty well. Well,
like, should we, for each of these podcasts, should we be trying a biscuit? Could that be our new thing where we could just like, I mean, you don't want to eat 4 biscuits in a day.
No, I do.
You do?
Yeah.
Because
we could do it once a month. It's my cheat day.
Yeah. We could literally go and get
Will and Charlie review biscuits.
Like, it's not even like, we just do a bit in every episode where like, it's only a bit of the episode where we review a biscuit. We have a biscuit for the episode that we both, and we review it. It can be a bit of social content.
Yeah.
Take it out of the show and we get to eat a biscuit.
We could, I mean, there's a supermarket up the road.
Yeah, we could start today. We could start next episode. We could get a biscuit. Yeah. We could both choose a biscuit.
I mean, we are on a tight schedule. We may have to Uber Eats.
Actually,
can we Uber Eats someone to go
biscuit? Just to go get one biscuit? Could you go and get us 2 biscuits, please?
I think that's not a bad idea. There is a guy online. I think I've talked about this before.
There's like a healthy cafe downstairs Like
They
that
have
they do
biscuits.
biscuits. They'd be like a bit healthy.
Yeah, let's do that.
We could start with like a healthy biscuit from the cafe downstairs.
Do they have unhealthy ones? Or is it only healthy?
I mean, there
There was a cafe I came to that's just only a block away that we could maybe run off to, and they had unhealthy biscuits there. They had like some choc chips and things like that. Yeah, I think we should do it. Maybe because we'll take a little break.
Because we could have because the theme could be ongoing.
Yeah.
Where we just because after a while it could just be like we could try a new biscuit. We could. I mean, maybe this is a way for us to finally get
I'm
some
very
sponsorship.
excited by this idea.
Like it's natural content.
Yeah.
Like we have done this before.
Yeah,
We
people
talk
want
about biscuits
authenticity
a lot.
Yeah. I think I'm definitely on board with that. I think. Yeah. All right. So let's. I'm
What
just
is
like in
this
my head.
podcast?
I'm just trying to
What
think
are we
about.
doing?
I'm just trying to think about what biscuits we could get,
Yeah.
like in the time.
Like how
frame.
would we start? Like I mean, yeah. What do we want to start with?
But people
I mean, we
hate
start.
hearing eating.
Well, we
on
don't.
mic.
I mean, we don't have to eat that much.
Okay, we
like-
just take a little taste.
So it's a little taste.
But then I know what we were like because when I brought those Tim Tams
Yeah.
in, we then.
But we're not eating
we
a
kept
whole
going
packet.
back.
Like we've got to eat. Like, we've got to keep it to one biscuit. That's got to be the rule.
I do know
There's got to
though,
be one biscuit.
when we did our Tim Tam
Yeah.
episode, the Jats Tim Tam episode, on Patreon, because I went in to sort of chat with some people to see what they thought, and like that caught fire. So many people went out and bought those Tim Tams. People were sharing their photos of.
I mean,
them.
we could get bought off by Big Biscuit after a while. Do you know what I mean? Like suddenly, like
Arnott's
you know how
presents
people think
Arnott's presents
the
TOFOP.
the Weekly Planet, like they think that they're being paid off by like Marvel or like, whatever to say nice things. We could actually be taking some side money from Arnott's.
Well, I'm always curious too. Like, I think, there's
Actually, you know what?
this
The
has
original
legs.
Tim Tam is the greatest biscuit.
But I'm also keen to try those knockoff, like the generic brand mint slices.
They do-
generic brand.
They
Tim
do
Tams.
very well online, like on when a news site will do. We compared the Aldi, blah blah blah, with the and I mean,
what did Dick Smith call his Tim Tams? Weren't they called Temp Tims or something like that?
oh, were they?
Yeah.
Well, normally all these things had
Dick.
like dick in them. So I don't know if you get a dick tam in your mouth. Enjoying this dick tam?
No, Dick, absolutely not. Yeah, I'm excited by this idea. Yeah, you came up with an idea on the live show as well, which I loved, which is the idea that, because we always joke when we do the live shows, there's always the protests happening on the steps of Parliament. And this time around, they were happening down the other end of the city, down towards Spencer Street.
It's a progressive protest now. They've got like a wheel. They've got like a speaker deck that they wheel around town, and like they do their protests like on the road.
Yeah, and so you came up with the idea that maybe that's how we do TOFOP.
Yeah.
Like we do it out on the
Take
street.
it out into the wild.
Because who's going to tell the difference? If you walk past two guys, like on the steps of Parliament, talking about how much they love biscuits, which biscuits
Tim
are
Tams
good.
are
Yelling
not the
free
greatest.
Kony.
Like, I mean, if we did viral videos, that I think would definitely.
I
be
think
one.
we have the same train of thought as those street protesters. Like, I actually think we're not that far away from it. Like in the
We get fixated on very specific
and then
topics.
change wildly to what are they talking about now?
Oh yeah, I think that's the new path for us
Yeah.
is kind of street podcasting and biscuit reviews.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Amy, I know we missed the meeting on Thursday.
Yeah,
was
it
this
was.
the sort of
was-
stuff that came
This
up?
was
Guys were
the
looking
agenda
to-
item for the meeting, and also
Yeah, of
Charlie,
course.
the milk chocolate royals. The
a free
Arnott's milk
Kony.
chocolate royals do have a very very thin little raspberry jammy layer.
Yeah,
They're
okay.
pretty- they're-
Oh, so
it's
that is
pretty
chocolate.
light on.
That is chocolate
It's like
royals.
a big bit of marshmallow and a biscuit, and then like a tiny bit of jam. Not like wagon wheel. Not the same as a wagon wheel.
Yeah, that's fine. You don't need to. See, all right. Here's my argument against wagon wheels in the mass-produced form are perfect.
Are they a biscuit?
Yes.
Definitely.
Yeah.
They're not like a chocolate bar.
Oh,
A
no,
wagon
they're
wheel?
chocolate. They're a chocolate biscuit. They're a chocolate biscuit. You buy them.
Which
Yeah, they're in
aisle
the
do
aisle.
you? Are they in the biscuit aisle
They're
or are
in the
they in the
biscuit aisle.
chocolate
Well,
aisle?
then they're in both. But
They're in both.
I keep turning to you, Amy, as if you're sitting behind the control window, but I forget you're in another state. No, they're definitely biscuits. But when you go and get those bespoke wagon wheels from like a cake stall or a fancy bakery or whatever, they always get the proportions wrong. There's too much marshmallow or there's too much jam or they're slathered in chocolate. I don't even know who makes wagon wheels, but
Yeah,
they
they're
have
Arnott's.
Westerns.
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 Oh, Westerns wagon wheels.
Mm-hmm.
Wagon wheels were Arnott's.
I think so.
They maybe used to be a different company, but maybe
Arnott's
Arnott's bought them out.
Yeah, I think
It's like
Arnott's have
monopoly.
just bought everything.
Everything.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Arnott's should be definitely sponsoring
No, because we need to be.
Muji, Arnott's, and Fuji.
Well, I just want to.
Muji Fuji.
Muji Fuji.
Like by the end of this year, we're going to have definitely identified the brands we feel most passionate about.
Muji, Fuji, and Kuji.
What's Kuji?
They're like, again, I don't know.
All right. Oh, Kuju?
Kuju? No,
Oh,
no, I
Kuju.
wasn't thinking of Kuju. I was thinking of like, wasn't there like a fashion brand called Kuji? Kuji? Like,
Cujo, the Stephen King book.
no, and Coogee, the suburb of Sydney. Anyway,
Fuji, Kuji, and Fuji water.
all right. Well, can we start this today? That's the question, I guess. Now,
Yeah.
like, I mean,
Well, I know, like, there's like a Coles or a Woolworths just up the road. I'm just thinking of like being time efficient. Maybe we
Yes.
just start with the cafe downstairs.
Yes.
We'll finish this episode. We'll grab a healthy biscuit, but that feels like anticlimactic, right? Are you certain that they don't have other biscuits? Or
well,
are you...
I mean, when I say healthy, I think they're like,
muesli biscuits, like a breakfast biscuit or something.
like have some, like, I mean, I think you'll like it. I think
Oat
they're,
raisin.
I honestly think they're in the zone of the stuff that you make.
Okay.
Like, there's like a bit of protein, like,
I
they're
know,
kind
but
of
do
like
people
a-
want to hear that? People want to hear like they want the good stuff. They don't want like.
I understand that, but
But
I'm
we
just
don't have
saying
time.
convenience. Maybe there's like a vending machine here that has like
Oh,
a.
no, fuck that. We're not going there. Those biscuits are always the worst. The chocolate chip ones you get in the
Yeah.
pack, no, they're terrible.
All right.
I refuse.
Okay.
There's certain biscuits
No,
I
no.
will not eat well.
No, I mean, I'd be happy to share a cafe biscuit because we could
Okay.
just get like a big cafe biscuit, like a, I said I didn't like the big one, but we could have like, and that would limit the amount that we could get like a big cafe biscuit, get a coffee on the break,
Yeah.
get a cafe biscuit, have half a cafe, and just kick it off. Just get some momentum.
You know what? That's good.
behind this
You're
idea,
right. You're right. Okay. All right. Well, before we do that, let's just go to the mailbag. Just want to read this one letter, and then we can wrap
We've hit
this
an
up. How long
hour.
have we done, Amy? Just incidentally.
I mean, yeah.
Okay, perfect. This is from Marianne. You remember I talked a few weeks back about when Iona and I stumbled upon that kids' party and the kids' party
Yes.
bags and the politics around that.
Yes.
So Marianne has some things to say. She says you discussed the predicament of not having enough party bags for unexpected children at parties. This reminded me of a family home video I recently watched with my mother. The video was of a Christmas picnic my parents had with friends and family at the local park. Santa, aka my father, was sitting on a chair reading a book to all of us kids, like a school teacher, except I noticed a few random kids sitting at the back row. I didn't recognize these kids in the video, and when I asked my mum who they were, she said that these kids had seen Santa from across the park and were so excited they rushed over to join Santa's reading group. The unknown kids then hung around, and this created such awkwardness that my mum had to quietly walk over to Santa during reading time and whisper in his ear, not to mention that the party bags in the Santa sack under his seat, as we didn't have enough for all the kids in attendance. I don't think us actual invited guests were ever given party bags that day. So the kids who were actually invited to the party didn't even
Didn't
get the
even
party
get their
bags to
party
protect
bags.
these randos. I don't think I would have done that. I understand the awkwardness, but I just think you have to sort of say to those kids, "No, Santa's not coming
You've
this
been
year."
bad. We saw the list, and you're on the
You're
bad
bad.
list. You've been on the naughty list.
Here's a stick.
Yeah,
This
you get
was-
some coal. Here's a lump of coal for you. Take that home and tell your parents you've been bad.
All right, that is TOFOP for this week. Will, shows.
Yes, comedy.com.au. I will be, I don't know, like depending on when you're hearing this, but Tamworth, got a bunch of tickets to sell. So if you're in the Tamworth area, that would be great to come along to that. But the rest of them are selling very well. Hobart, some Queensland gigs, all at comedy.com.au.
And we should also plug our final live show in Melbourne is coming up on August 3rd. It's selling pretty quickly now. Like it feels like we've got some momentum. Like we said, last show was amazing. This will be the last one for a while. So if you're in Melbourne or you want to travel to Melbourne, I 100% encourage you to do it because it's a lot of fun. And that is TOFOP for this week. I'm Charlie Clausen.
Well, there's
How long? Not long! Everyone relax!